Greetings, it's Death Compiler and welcome to the Introduction to Blender for Game Developer series. In this video we will have a look at the tools in Blender which will allow us to construct meshes from scratch. So first of all I will delete everything from our scene apart from this default cube, so I select the cube, Ctrl I to invert the selection, and then I press the delete button in order to delete everything, okay? So now we can just simply go to the edit mode and have a look at some new tools. So first of all, of course, it is essential to understand that all the meshes, all our 3D models, are constructed from vertices. So basically here we have several vertices, like 4 on the top side, 4 on the bottom side, constructing a cube. Those two vertices, each of those two vertices are connected with one edge. And of course, vertices that create a loop with edges have faces. It doesn't really mean that if something is connected with edges like a loop, it should already have a face. No, it doesn't. So for example, having this cube selected, we can delete only faces of it or only specific parts of geometry. So right now I can select A, like press A on the keyboard to select everything, and go to the face selection mode, 3 on the keyboard, or here, this button to enable it. Now I can right mouse button click and check the bottom part of the context menu where we have dissolve and delete. Okay, here we have only several of them, several options, but if I press delete on the keyboard, we will have a pop-up here that will allow us to delete some more components. Like for example, here we have everything together, like vertices, edges, faces, and some more like only edges and faces and only faces. So if I will select delete faces, it will delete everything that is inside of my selection. Of course, everything that's connected to those faces is also deleted. So basically, if I press once again edges, it also deletes everything, everything connected to those edges, so basically faces and vertices. But I can press delete only faces, and it will leave me this grid. So basically, I have the wireframe of our mesh. I have all those vertices, I have all those edges, I just don't have them connected with faces. And of course, I can reverse that, like create new faces on a connection. So basically, if I will select something on the model, you'll probably need that. If you select something on the model, like at least 2 edges, or at least 3 vertices, you can press F on the keyboard and it will connect them with the face. And of course now you can, for example, select those 3 and connect them. Of course it will create now 2 triangles. We can make it another way, like selecting all those 4 vertices, or on the other hand, 2 opposite faces. If I do that, I click F and everything is filled with a hole. Okay, so in this case, filling goes pretty smoothly. I can just select anything I want, for example, like maybe even all of the edges. That will be automatically connected if I select less. I press F and everything goes here. If I will select everything in our model, like all those edges, press F, and it will understand that each hole that we have here on the cube should be connected with the face. Yeah, if you select everything and press F. Of course, there might be a bit more different situations, that are a bit more complicated. For example, I can add something like this. If we will subdivide the cube several times, like here 3 times with the loop tool, Ctrl R to create that. Like sometimes like this, probably even more in the middle. And if I delete, for example, this 2 faces over here, delete faces, and now we have something like this. What we can do about that? If you have something like this, you can no more select like 2 faces, because there is no possibility of creating this exact point that we have here. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to extrude something. Yes, for example, go here, extrude the point, move it probably in the middle to the center, somewhere here. You can of course adjust that more specifically if you want, and then the last part you'll have to just select two vertices and press F. Yeah, and it allows you once again to connect everything, not with only with faces, but also with edges. Okay, so great. Now I can just, for example, select those two, or just once again all the vertices on this face and press F, and it should be filled. Okay, and of course if I have a hole, it is enough for me to select only two of the vertices. Okay, so for example here we have a line. Here's a pair of vertices, here's a pair of vertices, here's a pair. Okay, so if I will select only this pair or only one edge, I can press once again F, and it will automatically fill the whole hole in here. Okay, and of course the same goes here. I press F and it gets connected. Okay, this is one of the possibilities to extrude it and subdivide it several times, just enough to connect everything with the grid, and using F connect everything together. But what to do? I will get everything back as it was before. Probably it was better to delete that. Okay, so this grid to be filled may be too big. Yeah, for example, if I will increase that several times here, of course I will have to repeat that because it's not mirrored or something, and now it will be much more problematic to fill this space. So what should you do with that? In this particular case, if we have the right amount of vertices on one side and on the other, and we can say that if we will fill it, it will create a grid. And of course, on this side also the vertices should be connected, should be the same amount of vertices here on the left side and on the right, not only on top of the bottom. So if you have the same amount of vertices over here, and we can, as I said, connect it with the grid, we can go here to faces, click on that, and we have options to fill. If I press fill, it is the same thing as F, but it subdivides everything with triangles. So it filled the whole space, the whole hole here with triangles. If I just press F, it will create only one face. Pressing fill Alt F here, yeah, as you can see here, it is the shortcut. Alt F pressing, it subdivides everything in triangles. But if I will press grid fill, it will create a grid. Of course, in this case, it doesn't really understand how the grid should look like, but still, it does something. Yeah, it connects the thing with quads. Yeah, not triangles, but with quads. If you'll have a little bit more, a little bit less of geometry here, I'll remove that. In this case, using grid fill, well, now it doesn't, but in most cases it should provide you with a correct solution. As you can see, we have span, so you can, for example, try and adjust that to your needs of your model. Of course, not always it is possible, as you can see here, but still we have quads. Yeah, these quads are not the best, because as you can see here, it looks more like a triangle, but still it's a quad. Okay, great. And of course, once again, to fill everything automatically, you can just press F, yeah, and it will allow you to fill everything. So basically, in this case, using fill grid works exactly the same way as just pressing F on the side of the edge. Okay. All right. So let's fill this hole that we have here once again using the first method. Just okay. In this case, it should be better to go from the sides. Okay, and we have something like this. And as you can see, for some reason, we will not need several of those edges that we have here. For example, this one. Yeah, it will, let's say we don't need that. And of course, there are once again several ways to remove those vertices, remove those edges. The first way is to merge vertices together. Okay, so you can, for example, press several vertices, select them like here, The first one was the middle one, and the second one where we would like to merge it to. So now, having those two selected, I press M on the keyboard, and I have a merge pop-up with several functions of merging. So I have at center, at cursor, collapse, at first, at last, and by distance. So if I press the center, it will connect them and merge them into one vertex between in the equal distance from each of them. Okay. If I press at cursor, it will merge them at the 3D cursor. Yeah, the object where we create our new models. Okay, new meshes. Then we have a collapse that will just try to merge everything together as quickly as possible. Then we have it first, so it will merge to the vertex that was selected the first one, and then at last it selected was the last one. So basically in this particular case, if we will do that, it's like by at last, merge it at last. For all of them we should do the case. Okay, we will remove the edges. And of course, it will work if we, for example, have these edges not connected to anywhere. If we have some connection, at some point, as we could have seen here, we will get a triangle. Okay, if it is okay, you can stick with that. If it's not, well, probably it's not the best way to do the thing. Okay, so the last option of the merging that we have here is called a merge by distance. Okay, so this means that we can select, for example, several sets of vertices, like those two lines. And now if I press merge by distance, nothing will happen, but I can adjust this merge by distance options here. If I increase this distance, as long as the distance between two vertices passes the threshold that is here, they will snap together. Probably this point. Yep, something like this. As you can see, it's kind of random. It just snaps together the things and removes quickly unnecessary vertices. Okay, it was only possible in this case because we have different distances here, yeah, on this side of each quad and on this side, yeah, because this is shorter, we can use this side to merge objects over here, yeah. But if it was not, of course, first of all, they would be merged by this edge. Okay, so probably this will be collapsed together, yeah, like something like this. All right, so the next option how to remove this edge that you don't need is, of course, probably should have been the first one, to delete things that you don't need, delete those faces, and then you can connect those faces together. It may be faster, in this case it is, but in other cases it may be slower, okay? But the third option is probably the best one. So if we will pick up a line, so in this case is the best one, yeah, if we have a loop, and we can just remove this loop without breaking anything, because it is not really connected to something, just is a subdivision of a loop. So we can now delete it, press delete button, and we have dissolve options. Dissolve edges allows us to simply remove those edges that we have here selected without spoiling anything. So if I press dissolve, we can see that they are just simply removed and everything else stays in the same place. But on the other hand, on the contrary, if I remove the edges, it will remove everything connected to them. Of course, still the vertices are in place. Yeah? So it's not the best case. But dissolving works pretty fine. Dissolve the edges. The same goes about dissolving vertices. So if I will press delete and dissolve vertices, we will see that now all the vertices selected are dissolved, so they're removed basically, yeah? And of course, it creates a problem that here we don't have any connection. So it creates us an n-gon shaped face over here. It may be desired solution, it may be not. Of course, in this particular case, we can just simply select several edges like here and press J on the keyboard to merge them, to join them. J joins things together, yeah, if we have already a connection. If we don't have connection, J won't do anything. So having those faces here, we can just split it or cut it with a knife tool, yeah, or join them with J just to have something like this. Okay, and once again, we have a possibility to dissolve faces because it's the only left to be seen, and we have dissolve faces here. If I select only one face, nothing will happen. Okay, but if I select two faces, once again, it just merges all of them to create only one face. Yeah, it may be desired outcome, it may be not. Yeah, it depends on your situation. So in our case, why we had to simply remove this cut in the middle because it was a loop, it was the easiest way to dissolve the edges, as simple as that. Alright, so why all this is important? The first things first is if you have, of course, a base for your model, like a cube, and if you want to create something similar to a cube, it is pretty much easy to use the tools that are provided here. But for example, if we have something else, yeah, for that, of course, you will probably need a reference, but still, if you have to model something more complicated and you can't really figure out which objects should you start from, so you can just paste in a reference here to the Blender and repeat the shape, construct the shape, extruding, for example, a point, yeah, a point of an object manually. So let's see how it looks like. So first of all, I will probably move the camera view to the x-axis, so I can press, for example, here, yeah, or numpad 3, as you can see. I can press it here. So right now I have an orthographic view on the object from the x-axis side. Why do I do that? Because now I will want to place an image, a reference image over here, for example. Yeah. So basically I can go to reference images, I can have one here, and it will, of course, if I drag and drop it, if it is of correct file format like PNG, JPG, etc. If I drag and drop it, it will appear in Blender. Of course, as you can see, it's another model, another object. I can adjust its position, manipulate that. Yeah, for example, I can press it here. Why not? I can, of course, move it somewhere, scale it, rotate it, etc. So I'll put it like here, and we will try to repeat the shape of this object. Okay, so I can select the cube, go to edit mode. Of course, in this case, I won't need anything here, so I can just merge all the vertices at center, for example. It will create me a new point. I can move the point like here, like for example, yeah, I can move point here. Of course, as you can see, as those two sides of this gamepad are similar, despite the fact that there are other buttons over here on the left and right side, but still the shape is kind of similar. It would be better to use mirroring techniques. So we'll look at them a bit further, but now we'll just have a look at how can we construct an object. So I will, for example, extrude the one here, and notice that if I'm looking from orthographic view for Nexus, we don't have a possibility of changing the position of this point on the axis I'm looking from. Okay, so now I can just go E, extrude it, and it just allows me to place things correctly, and there is no problem with that. And if I go G, once again, it won't spoil me anything, it will still be on the same plane. Okay, so now we can have something like this. Of course, in order to really repeat the shape, we'll have to have much more points to repeat those curves, but still something like this could be appropriate, let's say. Okay, so now we have something like this. We can see if it will work. So I can just select a bottom part of it, press F, okay, it did the thing. Now F, okay, yeah, here it should be fine. So I can move one vertex here, and after merging it, okay, it does something like this. Probably I would add a new a vertex here, subdivide it. Maybe it should have been better if I have more vertices here, but okay, we will have to have a look at that when the time comes. So now I can move it here. Once again, those two faces, okay. Creates the thing. And here probably it will be enough if I just have two of them. So the last operations, and okay, we don't have it because we still have too many things, so I subdivided, okay, F once again, and we have something like this. And of course, here should be a mirror, so it just automatically mirrors there. But in our case, we don't have, of course, you can just model it once again, or as I said, go to modifiers, mirror on an axis of Y, and that should be pretty much it, okay? So mirroring option works as well as long as you have object in the middle of your pointer, of your pivot. So if you have it somewhere else, you will have to manage that accordingly in your modifiers. But for now, let's go ahead and look at the model. Okay, so we have something like this. We have constructed the shape for our DualSense gamepad from scratch. We didn't need anything else for that. Okay, of course, it still is pretty rough. It still requires much more work because it's kind of sharp, but still, as a base, as a starting point, it's pretty good beginning. Okay, now we can add a bit more depth to that, so I can just select a loop of edges at the same time by pressing Alt, left Alt, and then clicking on the set. Okay, it doesn't select everything, so I have to do that once again here. Okay, it still didn't everything select, so I manually select the last face, and now I can go extrude, and I can have something like this. And of course here it is the same way, so I can just press F several times and it will fill the hole. Okay, alright, so now that's pretty much it concerning these tools. Of course, we didn't mention all of them. There are numerous techniques on how to do things correctly and what to avoid, etc. But from the beginner's point of view, I suppose this should be enough to get to the case, to get to work, to model something. Because it is important to get really acquainted with those tools to get comfortable using them. Because without it, you won't be able to achieve more complicated scenarios. So, if you found this video any helpful or interesting, give a like, post a comment, and of course subscribe. So, thank you for watching, and see you in the next videos.